All right, everybody, RJF here. Your Messiah, your Ayatollah of reasonable thinking here with my newest intern. We're going to call this intern D. D. Do you know that Aaron Rodgers is... D does not want to go with the mask. Okay. So D is here. And today, Jets fans, we are going to talk about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is a New York Jet. And RJF is very happy about that. Because we've never seen a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers here before. Thrilled. But make no mistake, Jets management had nothing to do with this. There's 31 other NFL teams. He wasn't going to be traded to the NFC, so that limits it. Then there's teams with other quarterbacks, that limits it. There's teams with salary cap issues, that limits it. The Jets were the only team in play for Aaron Rodgers. He was owed $150 million. Green Bay Packers didn't want him. You think just someone taking that off their hands would be enough? But no, the Messiah, the genius, Joe Douglas, tried to play hardball. He got himself bitch slapped. Gave up a second-round pick this year, a first-round pick probably next year. Swapped first-rounders and a whole bunch of other crap. But he had no choice. Can't blame him. His job's on the line. He signed a 6-year contract. He's going into year 4 or 5 of it. And, he's probably, this is probably his first big payday. And he probably likes it. I would have had to do the same thing. He made love to Derek Carr. That didn't work. Luckily for him, Packers GM Gutekunst is a schmuck. Was hoping Aaron Rodgers sucked ass. Then Rodgers won two MVPs. He had to go back with his tail between his legs. And thus, it brings us to why Aaron Rodgers is here. But what I want to do is I want to go back and I want to give credit to Rob Demvosky of ESPN because I'm going to be going through the timeline that he created, that he published, to show you that, number one, the players in this whole deal are Aaron Rodgers, I think it's Mike Murray, the president, Gutekunst, the GM. That's it. There's no Joe Douglas involved. There's no Robert Saleh. There's no Woody Johnson. They were the only players in town. If Aaron Rodgers wanted to play football in the NFL, the Jets were the only team he was going to play for because they were the only team that had the door open. It's not that other teams don't want Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I'm sure somebody would have wanted him, but you got to have the salary cap relief. You got to be in the AFC. He was not going to be traded anywhere. Isn't that right, Daisy? All right, we're going to go put Daisy down. Let me go through this for you of why Aaron Rodgers is actually a New York Jet. It actually goes back to 2019, folks. No, it's a while ago, but in 2019, well, let's go. 2018, Aaron Rodgers finished with a 62.3 completion rating. He had 4,400 total yards, 25 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, quarterback rating of 97.6. Guess that wasn't good enough. Because in 2019, in April, right before the draft, the Packers hosted quarterback Drew Lock without telling Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers said he wants to play football into his 40s because that wasn't good enough. Aaron Rodgers, folks, and Jet fans, you better learn this right now. He is a prima donna. He is talent. He is the lead singer, the troubled lead singer who needs to be coddled. And it's fine. You got to coddle talent. Joe Douglas, he's a backup singer in this whole thing. He's maybe the manager, the assistant manager of the band. Aaron Rodgers is a player that needs to be coddled. Right now, Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, take RJF's advice and know your role and shut your mouth. Aaron Rodgers is your boss. Same for you, Woody Johnson. It goes Aaron Rodgers, goes Woody Johnson, goes Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh should not be even thinking about farting until he asks Aaron Rodgers permission. That's timeouts, that's player personnel, that's coaching, that's even on defense. Aaron Rodgers picks the players, Aaron Rodgers calls the plays, Aaron Rodgers runs the team. That is the only way it's going to work, and you're going to see all the shit that went on with Green Bay, and hopefully Aaron Rodgers is pissed off enough at that treatment and not being consulted that he ends up having a great season for the Jets. You hope so. But anyway, they hosted Drew Lock. That pissed him off. Rodgers, as I mentioned, is coming up at 2018. in that year, he essentially made it known that he was ready for a new coach, did not like, Mike McCarthy's offense, and he was pissed off that his quarterback coach, Alex Van Pelt, was ousted earlier that year. So we go to that. Now we're in we're now in August of 2019, and this is where Aaron Rodgers is a little bit of a prick. He knows that his coach basically said, hey, I really like these practices, these joint practices with the Houston Texans, and it had been 14 years since they had done that before. When Aaron Rodgers was asked after that, he's like, I hate it. Well, when your coach goes on there and says, I really like it, does a player really have to go on saying later, I hate it, I hope we never do this again? Well, if it's Aaron Rodgers, you do it. Coach, take my advice from Matt LaFleur. Before you say anything, and now you, Robert Saleh, consult with Aaron Rodgers what he thinks. Say what he thinks. Do not piss off this fragile personality. It won't go good for you, and you're gonna hear why. So that wasn't really good. There we go. Let's go to February 21st. This Gutekunst schmuck basically said publicly he would be open to drafting a quarterback in the first round. In the same session with the reporters, he was asked, would this be of concern? What would be the impact with Aaron Rodgers? And he says, and I quote, Aaron wants to win, and I think that's the most important thing to him. He knows we're trying to make the best decisions for the football team going forward, so I don't worry about that. Asshole! You've got Aaron Rodgers on your team. You don't fuck with this guy's fragile personality. So we're already there. He's not great. So we've got that. We got that going on. And then guess what? April 23rd is the draft. So remember, he makes his comments in February, starts planting the seed. The Minnesota Vikings use the 22nd pick to take Justin Jefferson, a receiver who the Packers liked and Rodgers liked. Then on 25, another wide receiver comes off the board, Brandon Ayuk. Then Gutekunst, the schmuck, makes his move. He trades his 4th-round pick, number 136 overall, to the Dolphins to move up from number 30 to take Jordan Love. Oh, about 2 weeks later, Aaron Rodgers holds a nearly 40-minute conference call with reporters, during which he says, I am not thrilled about this pick, but adds, I understand. He also realizes his desire to start and finish with his career with this same team may not be a reality at this point. He reiterates his hope is to play out his contract, perhaps beyond, but admits, I'm not sure how that all works together at this point. Oh boy. Why? Why, Gutekunst? Then in September, Aaron Rodgers, during an interview with Sirius XM Radio, says, you're going to love this one, folks. He says he feels good about his top 4 receivers. Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and Jay Kumakro. And this Kumakro is somebody that Rodgers really raved about. So he's all in about this Kumakro. Well, we know what happens the next day, not even 24 hours later. Gutekunst is such a schmuck. The second Rodgers says he likes him, he cuts him. He cuts Kumakro. 4 days later, the Bills signed Kumakro to the practice squad. Then on November 1st, just before the trade deadline, Aaron Rodgers is asked whether they need help on offense. Rodgers says, and I quote, you gotta love this guy, I truly understand my role. I'm not going to stump for anybody. Last time I stumped for a player, he ended up going to Buffalo. So, Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas, I hope you're really watching this. So far, you've done well in doing what Aaron Rodgers wants. Keep it that way. On January 20th, 2021, as he's basically playing out his potential, his MVP season, which I'm sure Gutekunst hates, Rodgers continues his attitude approach for the entire season during the week, when he calls his future a beautiful mystery, only in California. It comes in response to a question about whether Rodgers, at age 37, is looking at this game, the NFC Championship game, as his best chance to go to a Super Bowl. Well, unfortunately, 4 days later, in the moments after the 31-26 loss to the Buccaneers, And Rodgers is obviously asked about his future with the Packers. And then he says the Packers have a lot of guys. Futures are uncertain, including myself. Matt LaFleur never gave him the ball. This is the game where Rodgers never got the ball back with a chance to win the game. Because in the final minutes of the game, with 2 minutes and 9 seconds later, down by 5, he opted for a field goal to cut the deficit to 5, so down by 8, with 2:09 left, rather than going for it on 4th and goal from the 8-yard line. You gotta give Rodgers the ball. You gotta give him the ball there. What's the matter? Anyway, on January 25th, okay, Packers president Mark Murphy's his name, one of the players. He says on our local radio station about Rodgers' comments earlier in the day, he says, "I'll say this," and I quote, "There's no way in heck that Aaron Rodgers is not going to be on the Packers. I mean, he's going to be the MVP of the league. He might have had his best season ever. He is our unquestioned leader, and you know we are not idiots." Well, you are idiots. At least your GM's an idiot. He's talent. He's the lead singer. He's got issues, blah, blah, blah. But if you want talent, you do that. You know what you did already? You pissed off the guy by taking a quarterback in the first round without communicating with him. You then cut a receiver he said he liked. That's not the way to treat talent. I don't care what kind of miserable person they are. Well, January 26th, the next day, Aaron Rodgers goes on the Pat McAfee show. It seems like that's where he hangs out. And Rodgers says, "I don't think that there's any reason why I wouldn't be back," emphasizing the word think. But look, there's not many absolutes in this business, so to make an absolute statement about something that is not an absolute, he likes his word soup. Well, later on, Aaron Rodgers does say, I'm going back to the Packers. I guess $50 million a year kind of changes your mind. Anyway, on February 1st, a couple days after that, Gutekunst, in the season wrap-up news conference, is asked if he feels like he needs to give Rodgers any assurances about his future. All right, Mr. Schmucko says, "I don't think I have to do a lot of assuring him because I think, obviously, his play speaks for itself." Gutekunst goes on to say, "I will say this. We're really excited, not only for next year, but years to come. He's playing at such a high level that he always has, and I think this year was a special team. It didn't finish like we wanted it to finish, but I think everybody's purely motivated to get back, and I think, like I said, I don't think there's anything that we have to do. He's our quarterback, and he's our leader." Wow. A year before, you were bitch slapping the guy. A year before, he was garbage. A year before, you cut a receiver. A year before, you take Jordan Love in the first round. You were hoping the guy was finished. Face it, numbnuts. You had to come back with your tail between your legs, and you should have just said, "I fucked up. I thought he was done. He wasn't. I drafted his successor. He then played lights out. Sorry." But he couldn't. Can't admit it. How he still has a job is baffling. But, there's a lot of GMs who have jobs that are baffling. All right, a month later, Gutekunst is very vague when asked about restructuring Rodgers' contract, if that's an option. The Packers are still well over the salary cap at this point, and they end up restructuring several veterans' deals. This is important because on March 20th, the Packers don't convert Rodgers' $6.8 million roster bonus into a signing bonus. So roster bonus into a signing bonus, that's manipulating the cap. It would have given them about $4.5 million of immediate salary cap. Instead, a source said the bonus was vested as scheduled. Rodgers has an automatic conversion clause in his contract, but it still would have needed Rodgers' signature to become official, which makes it worth questioning why the fuck is it called an automatic conversion in the first place. So on March 30th, of 10 days later, in his first public hint of serious trouble brewing, Murphy has a chance to diffuse things, but does not. Instead, he refuses to say why a contract restructure never happened. Then on April 5th, again, we're heading into the draft, and what to date remains the last interview on the subject. Rodgers is back on Pat McAfee, and he says nothing has changed in the year since the Packers picked Love. That's why I've used the phrase "beautiful mystery," because it is quite uncertain which direction things are going to go. Rodgers says in the interview, He mentions he would like to be considered also for a full-time hosting position on Jeopardy after his 2-week stint of guest host is up. I don't know why. Again, it's Aaron Rodgers. He's got a terrific right arm. He's the most accurate pry thrower maybe of all time. He can do and say and think whatever he wants. He's talent. The second he loses his talent, then you fuck him up. It's just terrible. All right, on April 19th, the Packers offseason program begins with the 4-week virtual meeting. Rodgers doesn't report. April 29th, just hours before the NFL draft, that's scummy Adam Schefter teases a story about Rodgers being dangling to trade. Of course, Gutekunst says the Packers have no plans to trade Rodgers and believes things can be worked out. Gutekunst, at that point, admits that he should have communicated better with Rodgers before he picked Jordan Love. Why? Folks, it's called preventative maintenance. You do things to prevent the problem before it happens. Why don't people more practice this? Where are you, Days? Days is sleeping. I like to get our concurrence with this. Anyway, on May 1st, Murphy, the president of the Packers, in his monthly team website, acknowledges the media reports and writes, This is an issue we've been working on for several months. He says the Packers are committed to Rodgers for 2021 and beyond. Later that day, Matt LaFleur also says he wants Rodgers back. But when he's asked what happens if Rodgers doesn't want to come back to the Packers, LaFleur says, and I quote, "Yeah, I know, I can't even take my brain to that spot right now." On May 3rd, 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan, one of LaFleur's mentors, says on the Rich Eisen show that he called LaFleur the day after sneaky Adam Schefter's report went public. The exact truth is I didn't want to wake up the next day on Friday and see Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks in this league, traded without doing any due diligence. So I called Matt and asked him if there's anything to it, and Matt told me I'd be wasting my time if we had GM John Lynch call. All right, on May 5th, Brett Favre says he doesn't think, who the fuck cares what Brett Favre says? But he said anyway that he doesn't think Aaron Rodgers is going back. And then John Kuhn, who used to play fullback, says I think it's about 70-75% that Rodgers is the starting quarterback for the Packers this year. On May 10th, All-Pro wide receiver Davante Adams, in an interview with Fox Sports, says his future with the Packers would potentially be impacted by how the Rodgers situation is resolved. Adams is entering his final year. You guys see the soap opera here? This is happening in sports. This is real time here. May 12th, the Packers signed veteran quarterback Blake Bortles, who also has some ties to Nathaniel Hackett. Bortles helped lead the Jaguars to a 2017 AFC Championship game. A couple days later, the Packers signed former Falcons practice squad quarterback Ben Kurt. So now we got 4 players at quarterback. We have Rodgers, Love, Bortles, and Bencat. May 24th, Rodgers does not show up for the first day of OTAs. While these sessions are voluntary, he always came in the past. Later that night, he appears on SportsCenter for Kenny Mayne's final show and confirms that his beef is essentially with Packers management, saying he doesn't have anything against Love. That's Jordan Love. I don't know if he has anything against True Love. But it's just kind of about a philosophy and maybe forgetting that it's about people that make the things go. It's about character. It's about culture. It's about doing things the right way. All right, what is he saying here? Whether he's right or wrong, remember, he's talent. He is basically saying the Packers management has no character. They're assholes. They don't treat people right. And he firms that up later in these Pat McAfee interviews. So it's pretty much said and done, you'd think. But no. Money talks and bullshit walks. On June 5th, in another installment of his monthly column, Murphy wrote that the situation we face with Aaron Rodgers has divided our fan base. The emails and letters I've received reflect that. Why do you have to say anything for? And if you have to say anything, why do you say that? Why do you say it's divided? Oh boy. On June 7th, just 2 days later, Rodgers does not show up for the start of mandatory camp. We don't know if they're going to basically fine Rodgers the $93,000 a day. Catch that, folks? $93,000 a day. Hey, Sauce Gardner, asshole. Yeah, I know you got some talent. Why do you buy presents for somebody who makes $93,000 a day? Can you give that to somebody else? Maybe RJF? Unbelievable. Unbelievable that they give these professional athletes all these prizes and they're going away gifts. The guy makes $93,000 a day. A day. Most Americans don't make that much in the year. That could be a whole other rant. Anyway, he doesn't show up. LaFleur says it is what it is. On June 10th, during a private event at Lambeau Field, Murphy calls Rodgers a complicated fella. This guy's got no fucking filter. A complicated fella. You just called the MVP of the league a complicated fella. He's not wrong, by the way, folks. But this is the stuff you don't say to somebody who is a complicated fella. He's paraphrasing something the late general manager Ted Thompson apparently said, excuse me, regarding Rodgers to Murphy. This came after Murphy wrote in his column that the less said about Rodgers, the better. Wow. That's dumb. During the match, a made-for-TV golf event featured this is where Rodgers and Tom Brady played with a golfer against each other. I don't know much about it, but he's asked about if he'll play this season. He says, "I don't know. We'll see." He said, "That's it." On January 10th, he's at another golf event, and Rodgers indicates he'll make a decision soon about the season. He's going to enjoy the hell of this week, and then he's going to get back to working out and figure things out. Then on July 24th, Rodgers and Davante Adams, who reportedly called off his contract negotiation with the Packers earlier in the week, they put up on Instagram a picture of, they put up action posts of a picture of Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen from their final season together with the Chicago Bulls. That was the subject of the ESPN documentary, The Last Dance. You gotta love this guy. Don't piss off Aaron Rodgers. Wow, he's great. Once he sucks or he breaks an arm or I don't know. Oh, on July 26th, one day before players are required to report for training camp, Schefter reports that the Packers offered concessions to try to persuade Rodgers to return for one more season, and the two sides were able to mutually agree upon terms. Murphy admits to reporters that the situation has been kind of a pox on both houses, us and Aaron. Well, the drama is about to continue because on August 26th, Rodgers was asked during a news conference if he's been vaccinated. He said, yes, I've been immunized, which he wasn't. Rodgers throws on for 2 interceptions in the Packers' 38-3 loss, season opener, to the Saints. And after the game, LaFleur calls a loss absolutely embarrassing. Well, that pisses off Aaron Rodgers, where he says it's just one game. His nonchalant approach leads to criticism for some who accuse Rodgers of not being all in. So, maybe he wasn't all in. You got to be on the same page with this talent. Rodgers tests positive on November 3rd for COVID and is immediately ruled out in the game against Kansas City. On November 5th, during an appearance on the Pat McAfee show, Rodgers claims he did not lie about his situation. He basically says he followed every protocol except for conducting his news conferences without a mask. 3 days later, he's dropped from a sponsor, I think a local healthcare provider, Previa, dropped him as a spokesperson. Well, then he admits on the Pat McAfee show that he takes full responsibility if he misled people, which he did. Later that night, the league fines Rodgers $14,650 for violating the COVID-19 protocols for unvaccinated players. $14,000 is like a quarter to Aaron Rodgers. Makes $93,000 a day. All right. On December 25th, Rodgers throws for his 443rd career touchdown, breaks Brett Favre's franchise record over a win over the Browns. January 2nd, Rodgers throws for 288 yards with 2 touches and interceptions in a 37-10 win over the Vikings. And guess what? It clinches them the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. It's Rodgers' 6th straight game with multiple touchdowns and interceptions, tying for the second longest streak in NFL history. Nearly half of those yards went to Davante Adams. But, unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers and the team did not live up to their number 1 seed because they lost to the 49ers, where Aaron Rodgers on January 22nd fails to throw for a touchdown pass. As again, the top-seeded Packers lose to the 49ers 13-10 in the NFC divisional playoff game at Lambeau Field, making it the first time since 2010 this is 2010 NFC Championship game, that he did not throw at least one touchdown in a playoff game. After the game, he tells reporters that it will be a tough decision when asked if he'll play for the Packers next season. On February 10th, Rodgers wins his second straight NFL MVP and fourth overall for his regular season, which featured 37 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions while helping the Packers to a third straight 13-win season and the number 1 seed in the NFC for a second straight year. Afterwards, he said he hasn't made a decision yet if he wants to return to Green Bay, but he is thankful for the Packers and made it clear that there was no animosity involved in the decision. Boy, on March 8th, 8 days before the start of free agency, Rodgers tells McAfee that he's decided to return to the Packers. Oh, you know why he's returned to the Packers? The two sides still need to work out a contract. All right, folks. Why would somebody return to the Packers who clearly has issues with the Packers? Aaron Rodgers can have high morality ground. I'm sure he does. But here's why. On March 15th, Rodgers signs a 3-year, $150 million contract extension based on the structure and amount of guaranteed money in the first 2 years. Suggests he will play at least the next 2 seasons with the Packers. It contains a $40.8 million signing bonus. His pay in 2023 is also guaranteed. His pay in 2023 will be $59 million. I'm sorry, $59.465 million. And that is guaranteed. Wow. All of a sudden, you go from hating the Packers, not sure about them, they have no character. The guy calls you a difficult, basically. But you know something? Money walks. Money talks, Mix. Money talks. So give me $150 million and I will tell you are the nicest person in the fucking world. And everything I said about you, I lied. I'm a liar. All right, well, 2 days after this great big contract, the Packers trade all-pro receiver Devontae Adams to the Las Vegas Raiders for a first and second round pick. That was surprising, but I assume Aaron Rodgers knows about this. On April 29th, a day after the Packers passed on taking a receiver in the first round for the 20th straight year, because they didn't really want to put any talent around him, Gutekunst trades up to take receiver Christian Watson with the 34th pick overall. He is the first of 3 receivers drafted that year, which Aaron Rodgers will throw under the bus later in the season because they keep dropping balls. And I don't know why anyone signed Sammy Watkins, because Sammy Watkins is brittle. He's made of porcelain, but they signed him too. And of course, he wouldn't make it through the season. On June 7th, Rodgers, after skipping most of the offseason program, reports the team's mandatory minicamp. And during the session with reporters, guess what he says, folks? This is only a year ago. A little over a year ago. He says, and I quote, "I definitely plan to finish my career with the Packers." The 2 minicamp practices would be the only time Rodgers would practice with the rookie wide receivers before training camp. On August 16th, Rodgers' impatience with the young Packers receivers comes to a head where he basically says, "You keep dropping the ball, you're not going to be out there." A day later, the coaches have to call a special meeting to smooth things over. On October 9th, after a 3-1 start, the Packers lose a game to the Giants in fucking London. Why do we have to play these games internationally is unbeknownst to me. Why do we have to do it? Your teams lose a playoff. Your team loses a home game. The players don't like it. You know, the NFL's big enough. Really, why? Why do you have to do it? But anyway, Rodgers expresses disappointment in LaFleur's post-game message of not letting one loss turn into 2, which was publicly shared by cornerback Jaire Alexander. Rodgers also breaks his thumb, which is really more significant in the final play of the game. We don't know the severity of it at that point. On November 6th, Rodgers throws 3 interceptions, and Gutekunst is probably thrilled. He's like, "This is the Aaron Rodgers I knew would happen. Those MVPs were just a fluke." And he's already thinking, "Oh, I'm cutting this fucking guy. I'm getting rid of him." Rodgers says he had some shitty throws. They lose to the Lions. They're in that shitty phase of things. They're so shitty, the Jets even went to Lambeau and beat them. On November 27th, Rodgers leaves the game against the Eagles in the third quarter of the rib injury. Jordan Love enters and plays great in his most extensive action of the season, Love leads to a pair of fourth-quarter scoring drives, but the Packers still lose 40-33. On November 30th, Rodgers says he has no plans to shut it down, but he concedes that the Packers don't sit in the playoff race. It might be worth to give Love a few starts. He understands that if we don't stay in contention, blah, blah, blah. Aaron Rodgers took a loss to the Detroit Lions in his last game with the Green Bay Packers, knocking them out of the playoff race. That is knocking himself out of the playoff race. Then we go to January 8th. Rodgers throws an interception on his final pass in Week 18 loss to the Lions. That prevents the Packers from making the playoffs. When asked about his playing next season, he says during an emotional post-game news conference, at some point the carousel comes to a stop and it's time to get off. And I think you kind of know when that is. Wow. That's January. In June, so July, August, September, October, November, December, less than 6 months later, when you said you're going to finish your career there, now you don't. Folks, this is Aaron Rodgers. Get used to it. If he's throwing the ball great and the Jets are winning, don't give a shit what he says. But he'll start bitching about somebody. You drop a ball, you fart in the huddle, you mess up his locker, you say something without his permission, this is what you're going to get. Flip, flop, flip, flop. Anyway, on June 13th, when asked if he could look Rodgers in the eye and tell him the Packers wanted to move on without him, Schmucko Gutekunst says, if we were, sure, absolutely. I think he deserves that. If we were to get to that point, but we're not at that point. God. Stop talking to the media. On June 17th, less than 8 months after Rodgers said that he definitely planned to finish his career at the playoffs, he opens the door to playing for another season in 2023 by telling Pat McAfee, if they want to go younger and think that Jordan's ready to go, then that might be the way they want to go. And if that's the case, and I still want to play, then there's only one option, right? And that's to play somewhere else, he says. All right, a week later, amidst reports that the Packers are considering trading Rodgers, he tells McAfee that he's willing to rework his contract if he plays in 2023, whether that's in Green Bay or somewhere else. About 5 days later, squeaky Adam Schefter reports that Rodgers' trade this offseason is an option for the Packers, and the league sources believe that the franchise prefers to move on from Rodgers. You know, that's what happens when you don't know another MVP, and they think you're done. Anyway, on February 22nd, Rodgers emerged. I can't believe I'm saying this, and this is real. Rodgers emerges from a 4-day darkness retreat in Southern Oregon that he said he did in order to have a better sense of where he was in his life. He comes out there. I guess he went in thinking that, it was his choice, and he comes out hearing all these reports, and now he's pissed off. So on February 28th, Gutekunst says he has not had any recent contract with Rodgers and sounds non-committal about Rodgers' future with the team. During a lengthy session with reporters at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis, Schmucko says, until we have those conversations, I think all options are on the table. Well, the day that will live in infamy, March 7th, Rodgers and the New York Jets engage in conversations about whether they would have a future together. It is the first known instance where the Packers are allowing anyone to speak to Rodgers. On March 15th, I guess that's the unofficial date that the Aaron Rodgers era is over in Green Bay. Where Aaron Rodgers gets on the Pat McAfee show and says he reveals his desire to go to the Jets. Telling McAfee, I made it clear my intention was to play for the Jets, and I haven't been holding anything up. Rodgers says the holdup in the deal is Packers' trade demands. A Packers team source says negotiations are ongoing, but the team will be trading him. Now we're April 24th. We call this Joe D. Bitch Slap Day. The teams agree to make the trade. Packers and the Jets are swapping first-round picks, which basically fucked the Jets out of getting an offensive tackle. They won't admit that one. Green Bay gets number 13 overall, then Bill Belichick fucked them and traded with the Steelers. Overall, so the Green Bay gets the number 13 pick overall, and the Jets get the number 15 pick. They swap those picks. The Packers do send a fifth-round pick, number 170 overall, to the Jets for New York's second-round pick, which is number 42. A sixth-round pick, number 207, a conditional 2024 second-round pick that will become a first-round pick if Aaron Rodgers takes 65% of the snaps. The news breaks shortly before Gutekunst's previously scheduled pre-draft news conference, which means the paperwork still needs to be completed before he can comment on specifics, though he's happy to get the deal done before the draft, saying It wouldn't have been the end of the world, but at the same time, I think it would have certainly changed things quite a bit. I just think certainly the capital for this year was very important, certainly more valuable than the future stuff for our football team. All right, let's review very quickly, Jets fans. Aaron Rodgers could be a problem. Gutekunst is a schmuck. Matt Murray's an idiot. Joe Douglas had nothing to do with this. Aaron Rodgers wanted to play. He took his $150 million contract and he got bitch slapped with the trade first and second round picks. I would have done the same thing. He's trying to basically save his job, get another extension, and basically stay a millionaire. I don't know if he was a millionaire before in his other roles, but he's a millionaire now. And he's probably living a beautiful life, and it's great. There's only 32 GMs, really, and he's one of them. So I don't blame him. And I get on Joe D. I actually saw a Jet fan saying, well, it's great that Joe D picked Zach Wilson, because if Zach Wilson would have worked out, there'd be no Aaron Rodgers. Folks, that's unfortunately 75% of the Jet fans out there. The worst thing overall is the Jets getting Aaron Rodgers because their quarterback situation didn't work out. Because Aaron Rodgers won't be playing forever. This is not a 5-year plan. There's very little that Jets can do right now because they got all this money tied in their quarterback. What they wanted is to have their rookie contract still in place, but they're still shoving Zach Wilson down their throats. Aaron Rodgers does not give a shit about Zach Douglas. Zach Douglas. I'm so lost. Zach Wilson. He doesn't give a shit about him. If Joe Douglas has a kid, I wonder if I name him Zach Douglas. He doesn't give a shit about him. Aaron Rodgers does not really give a shit about much. He wants to be treated well. He wants to be respected. He wants to be consulted. And Jets management, please listen to what I'm saying to you here, and hopefully you've listened to it at this point. While Aaron Rodgers is with the Jets, assume he's going to be great. Let him make the decisions. Always ask him his opinion. On uniforms, on water, on Gatorade flavors, on anything. If you want this guy happy and content, find out how he feels after losses. But I'm telling you, Jets fans, and this is New York, and this is a franchise that hasn't won in a long time, hasn't had a playoff game. How sickening when it's 0-3, possibly, and it could happen, where Aaron Rodgers does his relax. We're fine. That's not going to go over well. And then Jet fans are going to get on him, and then he's just going to be lost. Give him the season. Let's see what happens. If it's a shitty season, he's not going to come back next year probably. He's going to make just as much money in an announcer's booth. But again, and in closing, Joe Douglas, Robert Salah, Woody Johnson, know your role and shut your mouth. RJF out.